How would you like a 15% discount to my daily email, the stack of stuff, the show notes, discounts to the conference, all of that? All you need to do is text the word show to 33777. You'll get the annual subscription with a 15% discount to my daily email. You'll get the stack of stuff, the links to the show notes, discounts to the conference, and so much more. All you have to do is text the word show, SHOW, to 33777. Text show to 33777.
Welcome to the Eric Erickson Show podcast, Hour 2.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it is Eric Erickson here. The phone number, 877-973-7425. Should you wish to be on the program? The dollar has collapsed down to its lowest level since 2022. We are watching that happening right now. Big CNBC and market coverage of this. The dollar going down, all sorts of problems out there. The world actually benefits typically from a weaker dollar, just not this week. Again, the phone number 877-973-7425. Philip actually told me that the show notes are free today. If you want to get a chance to see what the show notes are actually about, if you text Eric to 33777, the very top link takes you to the show notes, and you can see what they are all about, all the stuff I talk about, and then some of the stuff I don't have time to get to. It's all in there. We put it together every day before the show. One of the things in the show notes today is an op-ed by Thomas Edsall, the liberal writer at the New York Times who covers inequality and demographics. And I want to start for you is a couple of paragraphs here to make a larger point, but you need to listen to this. Again, this is Thomas Edsall, who is a liberal at the New York Times. The moment is ripe to deal a debilitating blow to Trumpism and the MAGA movement. Right-wing populism is staggering. Democrats are not only favored to win back control of the House, but they also have a long-shot chance of taking back the Senate. President Trump's favorability ratings on both his job performance and the issues that propelled him into the White House have nosedived. The ICE and Border Patrol killings in Minnesota have focused public attention on the dangers of autocratic rule. His second term has been dominated by a bizarre combination of narcissism, corruption, and a lurching foreign policy. But if Democrats are to succeed in excising the Trump malignancy from the body politic, their party faces a major hurdle: public distrust, if not downright animosity. Yashka Monk, a political scientist at Johns Hopkins, summed up the Democratic dilemma in an email. Democrats would be extremely foolish to think that the temporary advantage given to them by Trump's unpopularity amounts to a permanent fix of their deeply rooted image problems. The party's favorability rating remains at record lows, and while Democrats may temporarily be de-emphasizing some of the rhetoric that made them so unpopular, most voters do not believe that they have had a real change of heart against wokeness or DEI, much less that they have a coherent set of political ideas to fill the resulting vacuum. Put another way, Democrats and their liberal allies must persuade voters to have faith in their legitimacy, fairness, and strength of the party, its institutional supporters, and its network of advocacy groups. They need to be able to restore the left's claim to the mantle of free and fair elections, neutral administration of justice, individual rights, and the end to corruption. Good luck with that, Democrats. In fact, here's some startling data that came from a centrist Democratic group. They did a report of the Democrats' agenda, the written platform of the Democratic Party. They tracked keywords in the platforms from 2012 to 2024, and they found the frequency of the word hate increased by 1,300%. White, black, Latino, Latina, 1,100%. LGBT, LGBTQ, etc. by 1,000%, equity up by 766%. The word father or fathers, 100% collapse. Crime and criminal down 30%, responsibility down 83%, middle class down 79%, and veteran down by 31%. Ella Schneider, writing in Politico, noted in a 21-state research project funded by Democracy Matters that working class voters see the Democrats as woke, weak, and out of touch. Now, I want you to think about that in terms of also their effectiveness. Josh Shapiro, now that the Democrats are out of power, did a podcast interview, and I want you to listen to Josh Shapiro talking about the Biden-Harris administration, something being a loyal Democrat he wasn't going to say while they were there.
The Biden-Harris administration didn't provide those specific, tangible things that people could see or feel. I'll give you a very specific, concrete example. One of the biggest things holding back our rural communities is a lack of high-speed, affordable internet. Some people call that broadband. I've got 246,000 homes and businesses without it. I was incredibly proud of President Biden when they got that infrastructure bill passed to provide the billions of dollars that were needed to plug everybody in, connect everybody in Pennsylvania. And do you know how many people, Scott, this many years later, have been connected to high-speed, affordable internet thanks to President Biden's law in Pennsylvania? Zero, because the dollars were never driven out.
They never accomplished their goal, the effectiveness of the Democratic Party. Why didn't they accomplish their goal? Josh Shapiro doesn't say it in this clip, but I actually know, and I'm not making this up. The reason the Democrats didn't accomplish their goal is because they prioritized equity. There weren't enough black-owned businesses to roll out the internet with, to give awards to, and they didn't want to give it to all the white-owned cable companies to roll out the internet, so it just didn't happen. They prioritized equity and working with non-white companies and things like that, and since there weren't enough, they didn't do it. That's one of the broken bits of the Democratic Party. These people are just genuinely held hostage to an insane clique. I mean, listen, this is Mamdani, the mayor of New York, talking about the storm. Just listen to this. This is now mainstream thinking within the Democratic Party.
You get back to first the facts, because capital flight is always spoken about whenever we talk about the potential of increasing taxes on the wealthy. What we've seen is that since 2021, when New York State increased taxes on the wealthiest New Yorkers, the number of millionaires actually increased in this state. And so it has to be to get back to the facts. The second thing also has to be, we are increasing revenue also to be able to increase quality of service, right? We're sitting here right now in one of the coldest stretches in New York City weather history. One of the reasons why the city could start to get back on its feet was because we had a sanitation department that was staffed by thousands of people, to the extent that we could have 2,500 workers on every 12-hour shift. That's only possible when you're actually investing in public service.
You got that? Now, what he's not saying about the number of millionaires going up is because the stock market rises. The number of millionaires went up, had nothing to do with state policies, everything to do with the stock market. And now he wants their money. He wants their money to do more. He wants the wealthy to be taxed more. You know, the wealthy can move. In California, they're considering a wealth tax. It is even opposed by Gavin Newsom, this wealth tax. And the reality is people are fleeing California before it goes into effect. They don't even want to take a chance in California. So California is actually losing a class of billionaires because they are concerned about a wealth tax that would actually tax their hypothetical wealth. Not real wealth, but hypothetical wealth. It's just kind of silly to see where the Democrats are on this stuff. Their policies are very deeply destructive. By the way, one more from Mamdani being interviewed by CNBC.
And joining me right now in an exclusive interview is we've wanted to talk to you for a very long time about so many different issues going on with the city. But I know that you've been working on the budget and that is one of your first priorities. And so let's go there.
Absolutely.
Because I know that this morning, I believe, you're planning to make some announcements about the budget.
Yes. Well, first, I want to say it's a real pleasure to be on.
Thank you.
And today, you're right. We're going to be sharing the truth with New Yorkers that has sadly been hidden from them for far too long, which is that the prior mayoral administration has left us with a $12 billion fiscal deficit. And this is at a scale that's actually greater than what we saw here in New York City during the Great Recession. And it's something that is attributable to gross fiscal mismanagement, to a refusal to actually budget honestly and be direct with New Yorkers. And that's what we're going to actually do today.
Okay, so the big question is, assuming that that is the hole, how do you fix the hole?
Well, I think the first way is you actually be honest about it. And the reason that that's important is what we saw in the last year from the mayoral administration was there was a recognition about the scale of this crisis, but instead of actually being direct with New Yorkers, it was trying to shift those costs out of view. We had cash assistance, for example, where we were budgeting only for about 50% of its cost on the books, keeping about 50% of its cost off the books. The second thing is about actually making the case for how we fix structural imbalances in this city. We're talking about a $12 billion deficit that is a result of not just the fiscal mismanagement, but also the decades-long effort of then Governor Cuomo to shift costs from the state to the city. So we need to change our relationship to the state. We also need to change our relationship to the wealthiest residents and most profitable corporations here in New York City.
Change our relationship. Notice the smooth talk. But what does it actually amount to? Communist. I mean, the guy is a communist. Let's just be honest here. He's a communist. And that's where the Democratic Party is headed. And most Americans don't like it. You know, I mean, one of the major shifts of Hispanic voters towards the right has been over they don't like socialism. They don't like communists because they fled from those countries. And the Democratic Party is doubling down on this stuff. They've been captured by an elite who are hyper progressive and out of touch. Most Americans are actually not far left. They may not be far right. They may not be as far right as you or as far right as me, but they're not far left. And the Democratic Party donor class has gotten very far left. I mean, we just went through an entire week of Democrats who couldn't tell us if a man can become a woman. They didn't want to answer the question. They doubled down on putting boys in girls sports, with most Americans don't support. The Democrats are held hostage to these people. You know, for all of their complaints about the Republican Party right now is the party of Donald Trump. But when Donald Trump leaves, and he will, in 3 years, he'll be gone. He'll still be a force within the Republican Party, but not as much as the next guy who will be the Republican nominee for president. Will it be Rubio? Will it be a guy like J.D. Vance? Will it be a guy like Brian Kemp? I don't know. But it won't be Donald Trump. The Democratic Party is not held hostage by a single man like the Republican Party is. The Democratic Party is held hostage by a group of wackadoos, the donor class and the activist base, who would rather attack ICE agents and compare them to Nazis than round up illegal aliens and deport them, who can't tell you if a man can become a woman or will tell you that, yes, a man can become a woman. They've become completely out of touch. They have become very hard left. The Republican Party has more intellectual diversity in it. The Republican Party has more debate in it. The Republican Party has more strategies and solutions that differ with each other. The Democratic Party is in lockstep with the far left at this point, and the Democratic Party being in lockstep in that way with the left, it provides them a very narrow range of voters who want to embrace them. They are perceived as being nuts by most people. People may not like Donald Trump, but they really hate the Democratic Party. And so I dare the Democrats to double down on calling ICE Nazis. I dare the Democrats to double down on this and provoke more violence against ICE agents, which has already happened. I dare the Democrats to go on a defense of illegal aliens against deportation, something Americans support. I dare the Democrats to double down in attacking individuals and small businesses. I dare the Democrats to do this. Republicans have problems, and frankly, if I was a betting man, I would bet that the Democratic Party does well in November, at least in the House. They probably will pick up the House. People right now are very upset about the economy. They're very upset about the broad problems with the deportation plans, but they still hate the Democratic Party. You know, the irony here is the Democrats could do very well in November in the midterms and say, look, we don't have to change a thing, and then get into 2028 and get wiped out by the GOP again because they simply refuse to acknowledge they are held hostage by a bunch of insane people. There's perfect timing on an email from a listener who's asking about conservative advertisers in the podcast space and in conservative radio and their survival foods and the sports betting and stuff and why we take those ads. You know, conservative radio takes the advertising that wants to do business with conservative radio. I probably turn down more advertisers than most. Like I won't do an endorsement for a sports betting company or a lot of the prepper stuff. I don't like it. I don't use those companies. Like my bank is Old Glory Bank. I have a Rinnai water heater. I have a Van Allen golf putter, and I mean, I have I got an air purifier from Eden Pure. I like my advertisers. I like to have been a customer first because I think that builds trust with you. But also, you got to understand, a lot of progressives are in charge of ad agencies and company advertising budgets, and they don't want to advertise with conservatives. So I may turn down money from a company that loyally will support conservatives just because I don't think it's a good fit. But I also understand why others don't. I'm fortunate to have a major water heating company or a golf company or a bank. Kind of sets me apart to a degree. But I bring all that up because a buddy of mine just flagged this attention for me. The KFC Yum Center in Louisville, Kentucky, I think it is. I put up a promo for their events and says 9 months from now, you could be at a concert or changing a diaper. Make good decisions this snowstorm. It's that advertising right there that it sounds kind of clever, but when you think about it, that's the liberal progressive mindset that is in marketing these days, that essentially it's anti-natal, it's anti-parent, it's a pejorative to have a kid. You could be stuck at home with a kid, or you could be at a concert 9 months from now. Don't you want to have fun? As we have a problem having people having kids in this country, our birth rate is in decline. This is the big advertising sort of stuff. And that's kind of the progressive mindset here. They don't want to advertise on conservative shows. They want to advertise with something that placates the childless, godless liberals and make fun of the people who are having kids and growing families. I mean, you could be holding your newborn kid 9 months from now. 9 years from now, you could be teaching your kid to ski and taking cool trips with your kid. 19 years from now, you could be at your kid's graduation as they head off to college, or 29 years from now, having a grandkid, spoiling your grandkid. Or you could just be at another concert. I mean, that's another way to look at it. Progressivism in advertising is a problem, and their mindset not relating to people with families. Swiss America relates to people with families. They want to help you with your retirement. If you're interested in gold and precious metals, they want to be able to help educate you on those and get you informed and get them in your portfolio. They want to warn you about the secret war on cash that has cropped up in this country, where the government's trying to steer you towards credit and debit at all times so they can see what you're purchasing. You can get their free report, The Secret War on Cash, by calling or texting 800-289-2646. Just mention my name, Eric, E-R-I-C-K. When you call or text 800-289-2646, All Out War on Cash does include cryptocurrencies. The government is trying to get you to use debit and credit so they can keep up with you and see what you're buying and where you're buying. Get this report, The Secret War on Cash, for free. All you do is call or text my name, Eric, to 800-289-2646. You can also go to SwissAmerica.com/Eric, SwissAmerica.com/ERICK. I bought gold coins from Swiss America. They're who I do business with as part of my portfolio. You can check them out as well. Message and data rates may apply. I got to be honest with you guys. Pull back the curtain here a little bit. Yesterday, my coffee broke. I had multiple cups of coffee yesterday, and it broke. It did not wake me up at all. I was exhausted. I was leaning back in my chair and closing my eyes between commercial breaks. I was exhausted yesterday, and I had a monologue in this segment yesterday about AI, and I wasn't sure because I'm fascinated by the topic, the concerns, the overwrought nature of some of the concerns and stuff. And I was like, gosh, did I bore everybody? And yet I got flooded with comments and emails from people yesterday saying, I wish you'd spend more time on this. That was really informative, insightful, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And a couple of people made a point, and I thought, oh, my gosh, I can't believe, because that's in the back of my mind, and I didn't even bring it up yesterday. So I don't want to bore you with this, but I do want to tell you, I had a conversation last night with one of the most influential people in AI. I promise not to use his name. I know him. We're kind of friends. We had a lengthy conversation last night about his concerns with AI. He owns a Fortune 500 company, or is in charge of a Fortune 500 company that is deeply involved with the development of AI technologies. And his concern is one that a teacher emailed me about yesterday, and then a computer programmer emailed me about yesterday, then another teacher, and then another executive at a Fortune 500 company here near me in Atlanta emailed yesterday. In fact, I should say that the separate is a CEO of one of the well-known Fortune 500 companies headquartered in Atlanta emailed me and said his company is already having this concern as they move to AI, the impact on new hires and on existing hires in his company. They're already seeing this is the problem, and it's not jobs. First of all, I was excited to know the CEO of a major Fortune 500 company in Atlanta listened to my program, and I appreciate it. But also being able to reach out to like the people who are deeply involved in this, who you would all know, who are in charge of the major companies developing AI. Let me jump into the basic concern, and that is that with AI, jobs are going to be a problem, and the jobs that are going to be most affected are the lowest level white collar jobs. I mentioned my son wants to be an architect. My daughter's working on accounting and finance. The lowest level accounting jobs at accounting firms, the lowest level design jobs at architecture firms, they're probably going to be impacted. The computer programming jobs are going to be impacted. I had an event Thursday night in Atlanta at Christ Covenant Church, and I was sitting next to a guy who said his job is to, when there are problems within the company related to technology, go find the consultants and the outside people that can take care of the problem. His job is to find the people to take care of the problems. And I mentioned AI to him. He says, yeah, that's becoming an issue within his company is outsourcing certain jobs to AI. Amazon is announcing that they're going to lay off something to 14,000 people, and part of the layoffs will be because of AI. UPS has done the same with finding efficiencies. Other companies are people are losing their jobs to AI already, and it's going to escalate. And everybody talks about that. And people talk about the data centers and the mass consumption of power and the mass consumption of water. People talk about the strategic angle of this, the losing to China. What would happen if China becomes dominant? Frankly, I think it is very irresponsible of the Trump administration to be allowing NVIDIA to sell chips to China. NVIDIA should not be selling chips to China, but the head of NVIDIA has always been very pro-China, and frankly, I don't trust the guy. I don't trust the circular funding schemes between OpenAI and NVIDIA, where NVIDIA gives money to OpenAI that then buys NVIDIA's chips for that amount of money. I think we are in a bubble economically in this stuff, and I think the people who are the loudest saying we're not in a bubble are the people benefiting the most from the bubble right now, and it's going to burst, and those people are going to make a lot of money. Other people are going to be holding their bag. There are a lot of people who are going to be hurt when the bubble bursts, and it is a bubble, and you can recognize the signs with the circular trading and investment. It's a bubble you can make money in. I'm not saying don't invest. But there's a problem here. The societal costs of job losses to efficiencies in computers is going to be a problem. However, as our nation and other nations have populations declining, we are going to have to rely more and more on AI to supplement jobs. The blue-collar jobs, the plumbers, the electricians, they're the ones who are mostly going to be fine. It's the white-collar jobs in technology that are designing the computers that are going to wipe them out. We are returning to a slave labor class, but the slaves are computers, so nobody cares. And that is not the problem the person I talk to is most concerned about. That is not the problem, the loss of jobs, the security concerns. It's not the problem that the Fortune 500 CEO is concerned about. It's not the problem that the head of one of the major technology companies in America that I talk to is concerned about. You know their problem? You know their concern? The more you use AI, the less critically you are able to think. Now, I want you to think about this in the data aspect. I got my iPhone right here. People, particularly teens, who use phones the most have the worst attention span. The more you use your phone for entertainment and staring at the screen, the less you can read a book, the less you have the capacity to read a book. The more you use computers and iPads and iPhones and tablet devices, the dumber you get. That's the big concern. So when you rely on Claude, yesterday I mentioned Claude, there's a lot of news out there right now as Anthropic, which owns Claude, is headed towards possibly being publicly traded. There's a lot of PR push, and part of it is PR push, but part of it also is the issue of it's actually really, really good. In a lot of ways, it is head and shoulders now above where ChatGPT is. ChatGPT responds faster, Claude more accurately, more comprehensively. And one of the programmers at Anthropic was saying that he can code way more efficiently now, and they can use text prompts, and non-computer programmers can now design computer programs using Claude. It's actually really fascinating how they're able to build software. But there's a problem. Part of computer programming is logic. Computer programming is very logical. When I was a kid, I learned basic programming. 10, say hello. 20, 10, print hello. 20, go to 10. And it just did a loop. Hello, 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 hello. I remember very little of my basic programming, but I got proficient enough that by the time I was in high school, I could program computer game. I could build my own computer game to keep me entertained. I could use Pascal and I could use basic programming, and basic really was the most basic programming. I did logo programming, which was always fun when I was in elementary school. You could draw the lines and move the turtle. I did basic programming and I did Pascal. Basic was the one I was the best at, and I could do. By the time I was in high school, I was in computer competitions, and I wasn't that great. Didn't win the competition, but I had designed a basic program that was kind of like Pong, but it was in basic programming. You could use a joystick and you could play the game, and all my friends loved to play the game. And it was a logic-based programming. All programming languages are logic. And you got to be able to understand logic and the basics of logic to be able to do computer programming. And the people that I'm talking to, the corporate CEO, the head of a company that is doing AI, they are really concerned about the loss of critical thinking skills of the people who use AI. On a daily basis now, on Twitter, there's the Ask Grok situation where you make a claim and someone asks Grok. In fact, side note, there's a very funny situation playing out right now with a bunch of conservatives who have gotten used to asking Grok about things. And the other day, some of them came after me about my position on Alex Preddy's death, that he was on the ground and unarmed before they killed him. And that's not true. Grok, tell me the truth. And Grok agrees with me, and they're very mad at Grok for agreeing with me. And they rely on Grok now. They don't want to go to the New York Times because they don't trust it. They want to go to the Wall Street Journal. They don't trust it. They only want to go to the things that they trust, and they trust Elon Musk because he is quote-unquote right-coded. So Grok must be right-coded, and then Grok gives them the answer they don't want. How dare you, Grok? There's the joke about the Kennedy assassination conspiracy theorist, who he finally dies and goes to heaven. And he says, okay, God, now that I got you here face to face, tell me, who shot John F. Kennedy? Really? He says, well, it was a lone gunman, Lee Harvey Oswald, from the depository. And the guy says, oh my gosh, I had no idea how high the conspiracy went. You lose your critical thinking skills the more you rely on AI. And so what this guy in charge of AI, and pay attention to this one, all of you, with this person who's very famous, in charge of a very popular company developing AI products, says is classical education is going to be an important component of the future. What is classical education? Is what my kids are in. where you have to learn, for example, my kids in elementary school had to learn Latin, because Latin and the structure of sentences and the logic in the structure of sentences in Latin translates into your daily life, and it helps with your grammar. And then you have to take a class on logic and what are fallacies and how to build logical arguments, how to be able to stand up and speak to adults and make a persuasive case and a logic-based argument that rejects emotionalism and focuses on actual deep points. Logic, classical education is something that some of these very wealthy people are now starting to say there's merit to it. The public school system is no longer designed to teach critical thinking skills. The public school systems in this country are no longer designed to teach logic. They indoctrinate. They fail at reading. They fail at writing. They fail at math, but they're very good at turning you transgender. And that's a problem for the future. As more and more people are relying on AI, they're outsourcing their thinking skills to a computer. And the problem is what happens to the people who need to program more advanced than what Claude can compute? What happens to the people who actually need to do the deeper programming? Claude can only compute as deep as you can think to get it to compute, and then no further. And if you've lost your deep thinking skills, your computer system isn't going to be able to think deeper than you. You're no longer going to be able to troubleshoot the computer programs. But it's not just the computer programmers, it's you and me. We see it with our addiction to Reels and TikTok. We see it with our kids' inability to sit down and read a book or even to watch a movie. I have friends who hate watching movies now because they last too long, last longer than their attention span. They'd rather do TV shows that they know it's going to last no more than 30 minutes to an hour. They can come back to it later as opposed to a 2 or 3 hour movie. It's going to be a real problem. Advanced technical HVAC systems, a buddy of mine's texting me right now about it. Computers and AI, you're going to be able to do it. But the basic plumbing, the wiring, things like that, you're always going to have a person. But your computer programmers, they could lose their logic skills. You people who are in professional degrees now, you could see this. I'm talking to this Fortune 500 CEO who heard the segment yesterday. And he said he's having problems with his younger employees who they lack the attention span and they lack the critical thinking. They're getting played. They're getting scammed. They can't function at a high critical thinking level because they've outsourced so much of their critical thinking to computers. They can no longer determine what's true and what's not. They no longer have a logical and consistent order of doing things. One of the things you learn in classical education, particularly in the logic classes, is there is a logical order to a workflow. And it sometimes defies your emotion. And you, as you emotionally want to work through something, you've got an emotional angst about something, that's going to come first. But that may not be the thing you need to put first. You may actually need to put something before that, before you get to there. And in emotionalism, you lose the capacity to prioritize based on logic, and you prioritize based on emotion, which tends to not work. And this Fortune 500 CEO is telling me, they're seeing this in their jobs, particularly as they've used AI in their companies. The people who are regularly outsourcing to AI are increasingly reliant on AI and are losing their own ability if the computer goes off to be able to do the job. And that's a problem. And the guy who's developing AI says they're seeing within their company, the more you rely on AI, the more you are losing your ability to critically think. And the commonality is the people who are the most successful at this are the ones who are doing classical education, the ones who are learning logic skills, the rhetoric skills, the Latin, the things like that, because it forces your brain to work in ways that just simply your basic math and your Common Core and the like that you're learning in public schools, particularly when the teachers are more interested in indoctrination, you're not learning it anymore. The bottom line is that all of these people are telling me the biggest concern with AI is not actually the loss of jobs. And that's a big concern. It's not actually the security concerns with China. The biggest concern is when you go down the AI road, you start outsourcing your thinking to a computer. And when the computer inevitably gets something wrong, you lack the capacity to be able to figure out how to fix it because you've lost your critical thinking skills. And not enough thinking has been put into solving that problem. So if you get today's show notes, and again, we've taken the paywall off so everybody can get a sense of the show notes today. You can text Eric, E-R-I-C-K, to 33777. You can get it. And we put this screenshot in there. Giles Coren is a writer for the Times of London. And he wrote a piece in the Times about canceling his trip to the United States. And I'm just going to read you this chain. You can see the picture in the show notes. It's really worth seeing. This morning, I canceled our family holiday to America. I cannot in good conscience take my wife and children there and tell them they will be safe. The United States is no longer a place for decent people. Carol Markowitz replies, girl, you live in the UK. To which Giles Coren replies, safest place on earth. To which Lawrence Fox replies, rape is reported every 54 minutes in London. Safest place on earth? Really? To which Giles Coren replies, do you really believe that? Rape reported every 54 minutes in London. And then he replies again, oh, I just Googled that. Looks like it's true. That's a lot of rapes. I'll leave out the profanity. Yes. So, we had this issue with my kid. I'm increasingly very comfortable with our decision to go on and bring her home. In fact, a local pastor there reached out and said, yeah, that school's not exactly friendly. And then I had reached out with my kid and struggling and being homesick in a way, among all the other problems that she had, to the counselor who is in charge of reaching out to the kids on campus who are study abroad and may be homesick. She emailed me back finally today and said, I'm sorry, I'm not allowed to reach out to your child due to privacy laws in the UK. The counselor who's in charge of making sure the homesick study abroad kids are fine isn't allowed to reach out to the kids. They have to initiate. Good gracious. Wow. Folks, I got to tell you about my Renai water heater. I love it. Their factory is in Griffin, Georgia, up the street from me, a factory right here in the USA. And I'm never out of hot water. Never out of hot water. And I love it. Last night, one of my kids was in the shower and I got in the shower and we both had hot water and water pressure the whole time. And you never have to run out of hot water. With the Renai tankless water heater, you're always going to have hot water. Our power went out the other night and we still had hot water because I got one of those UPS systems and just had it plugged in. And it's very efficient and it kept all of us got hot water all night long. And it was great. Renai tankless water heaters. You can check them out. TalkingTankless.com. TalkingTankless.com. Renai tankless water heaters. You can have hot water forever. TalkingTankless.com. Check out the website today.